Great, and we are recording. So today we're going to talk about something called media queries. Who has heard of media queries before? A few of you have. So what do we think media queries are? Let's kind of establish a baseline here.
You're asking the user what device they're using.
So
you're not actually asking.
Not the user, but the browser. So media queries are a way so we can dynamically apply different CSS based on a set of conditions. There are other questions to ask, not just how big is your screen, but 90% of the time it's going to be what's your screen size. So we can say if the screen is smaller than these amounts or bigger than these amounts, apply these specific CSS sheets. And we can change those properties, and those properties that will most likely be changing are flex-based properties. You can also change height, width, any other CSS properties you can think of based on the screen size. So I'm going to walk us through a little example here. I have built a website that looks like this. Standard website, right? You have a header, you have a menu over here, you have some sort of article in the middle, you have a side, and you have a footer. So does someone see where I use Flexbox here, or where I use Flexbox? Just a little review.
What was the question?
Where did I use Flexbox?
I know in the middle.
Yep.
Because that's how I bottom.
Yeah, but it's in the middle, so these are display flexed right across like that.
Is that Flex Start?
What?
Is that Flex Start?
Nope, this is just straight up display flex. If we check out the CSS, can you see behind me?
No, you're good, yeah.
There we go.
Thank you.
Now I'm kind of trapped. Aha. So we see here, I'm only display flexing on my main container, so I'm only affecting what's immediately inside of it. So it's the side, the article, and the section called that has my nav in it, which actually I'm going to get rid of. There we go. There we go. So now my problem, when I inspect this, is when I shrink it down to something that would look like on a mobile device, this doesn't look as pretty, right? So I'm going to show you a way with the dev tools to, first off, emulate what it looks like on a mobile device. There we go. So here, this button that looks like a phone inside of a tablet, this will turn on the emulator. So what this does, this doesn't exactly emulate the runtime or the environment or the browser itself. It just emulates the screen size. So this says, hey, this is the screen of a Pixel 2 XL. So if I load this on a phone, it'll look like this. I don't like this, right? This does not look pretty. If I came to this site on my phone and it looked like this, I'd probably click away. And that's not good. Here we are in 2018. We need to plan for our mobile designs. So we need to use responsive designs. This is where media queries come into play. So let's check out the documentation for media query. And get a good old-fashioned example. Where's the good example that I always use? So we're going to use this one. So media queries go inside of our CSS sheets.
Is 600 arbitrary, or is that a...
Completely arbitrary for right now. So I am going to put in this, and we're going to see what this does. So this is the first instance of a media query that we have. So this just says if the max width is 600 or above, it's going to apply this CSS. So what CSS rule did we make there? Has anyone seen the asterisk before?
Everything?
Everything, yeah. So it says screen size bigger than 600 pixels. Everything is going to have a red border.
How would you determine the actual size? Why 600?
Why 600? I pick 600 as a good arbitrary height.
You're thinking of the Pixel 2
Yeah.
screen size.
I'm just trying to think of a good
The phone.
example to show it on a projector. I'm not sure of the screen size resolution, so I don't know what good size. So if I head over here, woohoo,
And do you mean anything under 600?
I might.
Nice.
So yeah, it's under 600. My bad. I always get that confused. So this says max width for 600. Anything below 600.
Okay.
So this would be mobile devices.
So 600 is the mobile device resolution, or is it not?
For right now, it is.
Okay.
These are pretty much always changing. But we'll dive into these in a little bit. So now with this, I know I can control what my screen looks like for these smaller devices, right? So if I head back to my page, what's the first thing that I want to change?
The text and other.
And math?
The nav. Let's start with the nav. So instead of the nav being right here to the left, have my side here and my content here, would it be nice if they kind of stacked vertically? So here, instead of doing a display flex on my main content, I would add in addition to that a flex direction column. Step in the right direction. So now whenever it's small like this, they're stacking vertically. But as soon as I make my website big enough to support it, it goes back to that layout that we liked before.
Go back to the.
So now, do we want to make this so it wraps a little bit instead of so it's stacked on top of each other? If we wanted to change that. Question?
The header of that mobile device, I mean the asterisks and the, is that important? Or is that just a notifier of what it is?
This right here?
Yes.
This is a comment. So I'm commenting to myself that this is my mobile device styles
I thought comments were the dashes with the arrows.
in HTML.
This is
This is CSS.
Oh. Okay,
Yeah. So HTML is a dash with that?
they're like dashes and arrows, they're like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's
the-
Less than,
Arrows.
bang, dash dash.
That. Later on.
That.
yeah,
The comma.
Yeah.
okay,
If it's
Mhm.
green,
Yeah,
gotcha,
that's a good rule of thumb. If it's green, it's a comment.
well, yeah.
okay, so it's just a notator.
Yep. Yes.
Just to be clear,
Command.
you're making those changes within the content of app media.
Yep.
So that's the scope.
Yep. So I'm saying whenever this is true,
Just
apply the styles in here. So while my max width is below 600, give me everything as red border. My main content is now flexing in column instead of row. My UL is going to flex as well. So now my UL, my navigation is no longer vertical, it's horizontal.
Can you go back to the visual?
Yep.
So then the UL with the display dot flex, that's gonna put them in line horizontally.
Correct.
Because it made
This is default, right? Okay, so let's put it on there.
the automatic flex direction is row.
Yep. Yep, the
And-
automatic flex too.
So, because yesterday I was trying to do that with the parts of my website, so the two like, sections.
Yeah.
And I found it was like display inline would kind of align them like that. Now, because I'm not using display flex and then
So display inline produces a very similar result sometimes.
but if you change the screen size, it's
Right.
not going to adjust.
Yeah, and it flexing gives you a bit more options because now you can justify content, you can align items, you can set the width, the basis, you can set flex wrap.
So when I use display flex,
Yep.
and then I can use the mark, so I can give it more space to separate, like between the.
Yeah,
No wonder I couldn't do that.
it does a lot of that for you. Yeah, yeah. Like those
Okay.
tried and true methods of like display inline that like will run forever, like they still work. They're a bit more work and then you have to do a bit more to get there. But these more modern solutions are a bit easier.
Why is
Sure,
it,
sure.
why is it still showing like out of the screen, the main content?
The main content?
Why is it not flexing appropriately?
Because we haven't gotten to it yet. So that's where we're going to go next. So the question on the table is, why is it still doing this? Well, let's check out its styling real fast. So the reason why it's doing it is that whenever we're at a desktop UI, it's set to a width of 50 EMs. So we always know that the content's this wide. 50 EMs on a small screen, huge, it goes off. So now we're going to want to override this whenever it's smaller. So we head into our media query, create a new selector, and just we'll do width auto. Yep, it got overwritten.
Important.
Important. So that actually showed that I should have this
I was
towards,
gonna ask you that.
yep, at the bottom.
Okay.
So now it fits my screen this way.
Yeah, same issue.
They're
This
layering,
routing.
What?
layering with the green square.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
We're working our way down. I like the enthusiasm. I know, problems.
So should we always put the queries at the bottom? Try to aim to always put it at the
Yep.
bottom?
Aim towards the bottom, or aim after where your other styling is. There is also a way to to put it in a separate style sheet, but that gets a lot of requests going back to your server to find it.
Mhm.
And on a mobile device, requests back to your server, you want to try to limit those. We'll dive more into that whenever we actually get into JavaScript and servers and stuff like that.
So with media queries, are all of the CSS styles, are they going to be appending the current styles? And if there is an occurrence of it, it'll override it. And that's it.
What is it? Heading?
Adding on to rather than
Yep.
like replacing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, adding on, not replacing.
just clarify, it's in cascading the style sheets, so the bottom one
We'll win.
will win the top, okay.
Yep.
That
Mhm.
needs to set in my mind.
But the
So
reason
it
is
reads-
it starts reading from the top. So it
It's-
says
it's
article
reading
with 50 first.
Reading and applying,
That's what it
Article
does.
50, and then
And then it goes
Article, oh, wait a minute, I'm also doing Article with auto now. Let's make it auto.
So it starts reading from the bottom up.
Top down.
Top bottom,
It says-
Top down.
okay. And your queries should be placed at the bottom.
Yep.
It- yeah.
Literally appending.
What?
Literally appending.
Yep. Alright, so let's get the rest of this site up to par on a mobile device.
Real fast.
So as Alexis pointed out, we're overlapping here. So what's going on here? What?
I said it's in the wrong order because you just said it has to be from top to bottom.
It is. I moved it to the
There,
bottom.
right?
So there is an automatic hide on it.
So I thought,
Yep.
It's a lot easier.
oh, well, I was just saying, how's the border?
Yeah,
Is it
that's
just
that's.
scroll.
So next up, we'd wanted this to be 100% across, whatever this aside content is.
Stretch.
At 100%. So, Mark,
Mhm.
you knew it was called aside.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, the HTML.
I knew it was called aside because when I built this a half hour ago, I made this an aside. Yeah, an aside tag. So what is an aside tag?
It's gonna be on the side.
Come on the side. It's whenever you have any sort of like side content, like a banner or an ad or a navigation or like who is this kind of thing?
So when, if I go back visually, how that website looks, you have the side navigation, the aside, the main content, the header, the footer. So as you're picturing that display, would you also use that, and this is just for practical reasons, would you kind of call those sections, like you would refer to those sections in that way? So that when you're doing the style sheet, the aside would be the left hand or the right hand of the browser. The
Yep.
navigation would be the other way around, because I have two left hands. So left hand is the navigation bar, right hand is the aside, main content, header, footer, and then you can name those classes
Yep.
so that you can refer to them in that way. Is that
Yeah. So the how I built this out is that I built all my HTML and said I want a header, a footer, content. I'm going to give them meaningful names where I need them. That way, whenever I'm over here, I just know, oh, aside. I know if I want to style my side, it's aside. If I want to style my main content, it's dot main content.
Would you mind taking out the CSS just
Complete.
so we can see the HTML by itself?
Yeah, sure. Oh. No problem. Aha.
Oh wow. So the aside and all that that you're referencing isn't actually going to be on the side. It's going to all come down.
But they're empty right
It's
now.
there, but they're empty.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it wasn't empty, it would just show below or on top, depending.
Yep.
It's the side after. Gotcha. You just show after.
I'm going to put in some content here so we actually see it. So with nothing, this is what it looks like. We have header, list, paragraph, aside, footer.
Wow.
So it's actually stacked relatively close to what I want already without it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey Mark, what's the and in BSB within the list?
Put a space.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
So as we know, HTML is interpreted by the browser. It's read. and certain characters let the browsers do certain things. If I wanted to put in special characters or certain characters, I have to use their HTML encoded equivalent. So let's say hypothetically, I want to put in like a less than sign inside of an actual content, maybe like a math site. Like if I try to input just the actual less than sign, it's going to think the browser's going to think that it's a tag. So this one specifically, ampersand NBSP, is the HTML encoding for space. So I'm saying this thing has space in it.
So one space,
Yep, one space.
or you have to do it, if you wanted 10 spaces, you have to write it 10 different times.
So 10 different times,
Mm-hmm.
without
Yep, so it'd be ampersand NBSP, semicolon, ampersand NBSP, semicolon. The reason why I do this, and you might do this at some point, is that if a markup item is empty, the browser might not render it at all. Because it's like, oh, it's empty, I don't care about it. So here I'm forcing a little bit of content inside of it, so it forces.
Oh, that was before you had the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So just curiosity.
Yeah.
You're modifying the visual aspect based on the CSS, but you still have the same content.
Yep.
What if I wanted to change the look on a mobile versus the look on a web browser? Can I have a condition on the HTML size that says, hey, if it's a mobile, make it look this way, or break it up this way?
So you're saying, and just so I'm clear, is that you want something that's radically different.
Yes.
So that's not just kind of like, oh, we're going to take our stuff and rearrange it. We want to actually take our stuff and like change it completely. So there are a couple of different approaches to that. What I would do is, I think of the best answer for this. Yeah.
Kind of related to that, like, so my thought in that, when you say that, is how a lot of the web pages, if you go on there, they immediately come up with a link, go to our mobile site. So like it's a second website that they have specifically for mobile ones.
So-
I think that link is a download out mobile application as opposed to looking at it on
So-
a browser.
So she's not wrong. There for about 5 or 6, like not even 5 years, like 2 to 5 years, there was this trend where you actually like every website would have 2 different websites, and one would be like weatherchannel.com, and then the other would be mobile.weatherchannel.com, where it's being completely like an optimized for mobile and optimized for desktop. That was before media queries really took off. So let's say that I wanted to radically change this. It would be a combination of display nuns and media queries.
I'm sorry, say that.
Display none and media queries. So I would build my HTML in a way so that it's so generic that I can use CSS to do 100% of the styling, and just use Flexbox and CSS grids to rearrange it.
It would all be in CSS. It would not be in the
Yep.
HTML.
100% CSS.
So it would be like a beefed up media query.
Oh yeah, like this media query that we did,
So kind of short there.
it's really simple.
So just to be clear.
Yeah.
So I've seen it where the nav would
Mm-hmm.
be something that's on a browser would be something that's laid out across the top, right?
Mhm.
Whereas when I go on and look at it on a mobile, it's a sort of a drop down menu for everything.
Yeah, yep.
And so that would be done with
Uh-huh.
CSS.
Yeah, so for that specific example, you have a menu that's an HTML that spans to the top, like a lot of y'all did for your homeworks. Whenever it gets to a certain screen width, that menu is hidden, and the mobile nav is shown. So the HTML for both of those is still in the page. It is whenever you get small enough, it's which one is displayed and which one's not displayed. So let's do an example of that right now. So let's have a nav, and let's call this desktop menu. Let's have a nav here. We'll call this class equals mobile menu. I like nav better. Nav sounds cooler. And mobile menus, mobile navs are, stop going over there. They're typically drop downs, right? Sometimes?
Yes.
So let's just do a select real fast. So do I have just strictly nav? I do not.
I'm still using the number list.
Mhm. So now we have a desktop nav and a mobile nav. So normally we want our mobile nav to be hidden. So we'd hit that for display none. Yep. Head over here. It's still not there. Right. So, but we want it shown whenever we hit this magical 600. So .mobile nav display block. It's there, but let's make it a little bit bigger. With 100% font size. Yeah, it's good enough for now. So here we have our mobile menu, but now we need to hide our actual navigation menu here. So now when we're on mobile, we have our small little flyout here. And then whenever we get bigger, our real menu comes back. So here we're saying we have a desktop and a mobile version. And we're using our CSS to control which one's seen.
Can you do orientation?
Yep. Yeah, so media queries can do a lot more than just screen width. We could do, there is orientation, which is landscape and portrait. So is your device straight up or is it horizontal? And you can even get crazy and do some little inverting of your logic and testing for if you have colors, if you're doing it for a printer, if you're doing it for a screen, what kind of screen are you doing it for? So you can get pretty wild with these. So after a quick search, this is something, so media screen size standards for devices change yearly. Of course, devices are getting better resolutions, different screen sizes. And this is one that was made this year. So like this would be a good media query for desktops. Saying anything above 1281 pixels.
I think maybe it would be, is it above?
Yep, it's above.
I was
Minimum.
just thinking because of the one they were trying to include 1280.
Minimum width.
So let's find out. It is anything bigger than 120 in 1281.
Okay, so, well, they did 1281 because they wanted it, they don't want, because 1280 is a pretty, well, no, 1280 is kind of common, I'm thinking 1080, right?
Yeah, you're thinking 1080.
Okay.
Yeah, so 1280 is this CSS will be applied to any screen that's bigger than 1281.
If a company built out their site with media queries and then had one for mobile, one for desktop, let's say.
Yep.
And in 2 years, that the screen size average changes. The iPhone
Yeah.
6 Plus comes out and there's a huge screen.
Mm-hmm.
Is it as simple as going to that media query and changing the min width?
Yep, just going in and adjusting these numbers. Typically for a site, you'll see you would have a media query for desktops, for tablets, for mobiles, for small mobiles, for tilted mobiles, for vertical mobiles. And you would just design for each one inside of those and kind of use those as kind of your guiding light. They're typically set once per project and not really touched ever again, unless there's a massive shift.
So, these CSS files,
Yep.
because you have to account for various parameters, right? They can get very big.
Yes.
Can you break them down to say, okay, this is for my desktop, and then in that file you would put and include a mobile CSS so that when it reads it, it's, sort of, you chain the CSS files together based on your whatever parameter you're trying to account for.
So yeah, so you're saying only load the styles for the screen size that you want.
Right, but each CSS file is different.
Mm-hmm.
Desktop, mobile, and I chain them together.
Yeah, a lot of what you're talking about comes into the preprocessors, like SAS and stuff like that. It all has built-in tools to manage all of that.
Okay.
Because yeah, that is a big problem. Because like after a while, like your CSS page, like this is a relatively simple website, right? Like there's really not much to it. It doesn't look pretty, to be quite honest. And I'm already up to 106 lines of code over my CSS. So as you can imagine, as this would get more complex, the CSS files is going to get pretty big. And now I'm taking into account mobile devices, desktop devices, tablets, other tablets, surfaces, just so much. It's going to be a lot. And this. But SAS helps get over that hurdle.
So based on the preprocessor parameter, is that applied? Can that be applied to the HTML to do the same thing? To say, hey,
Nope, it's all CSS.
oh, CSS.
HTML is gone.
Okay, so
Remember that. Yep.
regardless, that's what it is.
Yep.
And so you would have a big file to account for mobile, whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
And you said in the HTML, because in the head, remember we had HTML, you said, go to the CSS screen, CSS. And you said in that head, like the width, if the width is so much, go to this one. If the width is over that, go to the other one. Can you do it there in the head?
You could, but I don't like that.
Yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
take one way.
It's got to take a lot of bandwidth to go back and forth to figure out which one's the right one, and it's not performant. It's not.
No, I'm talking about our tools right now, without knowing what else is out there.
Yeah. For right now, you don't have to worry about any of that. It all goes into one CSS file.
So all your styling goes, depending on the screen, is gonna go on your CSS style sheet.
Yep.
And it's gonna be mobile, tablet, desktop, and that's how you're gonna.
Yep. So see how we have one for, we pretty much have our basic stylings up here. We have a section for our mobile. We have a section for our desktop specific designs. And we'd have a third one for our tablet specific designs.
So is this like why companies like only make specific apps for like Apple only makes the Play Store or whatever it's called? So they know that it's only going to be on these specific type of devices, so they design it to be on only that.
Yeah. The flexibility that you get here is exact countering to that exact problem. Like that's why Apple products are really good for startups. Just get a little ranty. But if you're a startup, you target an Apple device or an Apple mobile device because every iPhone is going to be running the latest version on these hardwares with these screen sizes. Conversely, if you target an Android for your startup, you have to target a whole bunch of So there's a big old general push, and that's where these tools between FlexBlocks and media queries come into play to try to be as generic and as flexible as possible.
What's the market share of Apple and mobile devices? Do you happen to know?
Last time I checked, it was only like 35%.
Or that's not like 1/3.
Yeah, like it's about a third. Android's just crushing it. Solidarity.
But if you go to the spending on the App Store
Yeah.
against the other stores, like 90%.
Yeah. Yeah.
You only
That's
need 1% to buy it.
And that's why developers go there, because there's the money, if it's in the.
that's a good chat to have over pint at some point. So media queries. Feeling good? Feeling
When I see it on the screen
Yeah.
and we talk through it, I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I've got this.
Exactly.
It's like, wait.
feeling good right now.
Right now.
Yes.
I'm glad I'm not the only
You
one.
see the screen goes off, then you send us a copy of that code.
That's
Yes.
how it works,
Yes.
guys.
Yes, I'll send you a
That's why I
copy.
took a picture of it yesterday.
You're gonna post this on,
I'm in the process of creating a repository for all the lecture notes. So all the code that I type up, I'm like, here's today's lecture notes.
Great.
Yeah, right.
It's like a little bootstrap for us.
Just here's a working example to kind of get you up off your feet. Great, so feeling good? All right, let's take a 10-minute break, come back at 11:11, and we'll talk about the next activity.
Yeah.
Let's go. You have your.
Oh, yeah.